Ta-da! This is at a halfway mark. This is issue 10, and we're doing 20, the first 20, which has been collected in this fantastic uh,
Omnibus.
omnibus. I think this is like the 2013 version of it. So this is pretty damn exciting. And then just to do a really, really quick recap, this is part two of a or at least I'm saying it's a part two because it's a big drop off from episode 9 for us, issue number 9. But we had found that this last episode was a really Kirby just brought everything in the kitchen sink and was plowing forward. So totally excited to see what the follow up is to issue 9, Jake.
Yeah, and my theory last week was that Kirby had been kind of like stockpiling some great
Yeah.
ideas, and he was very aware what was going to happen here in the future when people would be fighting over stuff and fighting over credit. I'm learning a lot more about the lawsuits that he was involved in the in the 50s, sometimes with his own friends and collaborators.
Wow.
It was all just part of the, so he brought a couple of cool things to Kamandi. In number 9, we saw some interesting photo montage art that he was
Yes.
trying to shoehorn into the Kamandi story.
Yes. Oh, it was
Um,
phenomenal.
but it was so nice. And then, a couple of things that, might be related to the Planet of the Apes series, but also, were new twists in the Kamandi world. So let's dive in.
Bing! Trapped in a city of death. The only way out is blocked by an army of ravenous bats. Commanded last boy on Earth.
That's right. We saw these bat guys last time, these humanoid bat guys. Um, he also developed the story of the tracking site last issue, which is this remnants of a floating city, or that humans were trying to escape into when the big disaster was happening, and they were also trying to convert people into cyborgs with cyclo hearts so that they could be more likely to survive. And
And that was
I
over
think that,
South America. And it also did have a lot of Thundar the Barbarian touches to it, I just have to say. So
yeah, you say that about everything. um,
so I gotta turn this
yeah,
page, Jake. I gotta.
you know, I mean, that's why we're doing this, is because I kept saying everything had touches of Kamandi in it, and so here we are. But yep, I'm just gonna keep saying it over and over. Guilty as charged,
Me
guilty as
too. Me
charged,
too.
guilty as charged. So yeah, so here we see Kamandi is staring down the barrel, this of something, we don't know what it is, and we've seen this a lot. This barrel isn't as foreshortened as some of the others, but it's a great idea for a hook. You're looking at these four faces, and they're all staring intently at something. We don't know what it is. I want to point out something that I point out every episode is, on the upper left, you have Ben Boxer, and I don't know why, but his face looks just like Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves. Um, that stuff on his face, there's no such thing as that. These are just Kirby squiggles as inked by Royer. What was it? Jack
Yep.
Royer? Is this what? Yeah,
Mike.
and
Mike Royer.
Mike Royer. Sorry, yeah, and those, they're just meant to be cool black designs to give balance, to give like some kind of contrast and balance. And you're going to be looking at that. So this is the great thing about Kirby, is looking at that and saying, why isn't it more realistic? It's not like that on purpose, because Kirby was just ripping through this, and he's putting his unique Rorschach design stuff all over everything. Um, and at the time, I used to think it was weird, but I love it so much now. This is a secret language, a secret visual language. Um, so they're telling us savage man-sized bats are swarming. There's no stopping them. It's not like it's a secret what they're looking at, but we just haven't seen it for ourselves yet until
Oh my God.
Yeah. So yeah, that happened. Um, we're inside, we're supposed to be inside this giant globe. They say it was built by NASA for a journey into deep space, but the globe never made it, stayed stuck on Earth, and then it served as a refuge for those who survived the mysterious disaster
Mm.
which struck the world. And when they say that, that means that Kirby just hasn't plotted out what the disaster was. Not yet. And he's figuring all that as he goes. That's the fun part. And
Yes.
so, that was the past, this is now. And so this is the Globe City. No one is tracking sight. And it's and Screaming Death as Kamandi, is facing these bats. And here we see a great scene of, the bats just wreaking havoc on some like nondescript machinery. They're breaking through the walls. um, I'm not sure about some of the colors. I think they were we're just speculating, but I think the color was just handed off to somebody later, and we don't
Yeah.
know if
No credit.
these are Kirby's color indications or not. We see that crazy creature called the Misfit. Remember him?
Mr. Potato Head.
Right. And one of them is mauling the Misfit. He's too weak to defend himself. Kamani is just shooting like randomly, and that
It's
we
not
don't even
even
know where the
looking.
shot is going. Yeah, and this is the other thing we spoke about is like, are the shots lethal or not? We don't know. Um, and yeah, the bats are crawling all over the ceiling. This is great. This is great stuff. So let's say Ben Boxer is saying the Misfit's power is not in his arms and legs. He uses mental abilities as a weapon. Watch him.
Oh
So the
boy.
Misfit, when we last left, the Misfit had summoned Ben Boxer and friends, hadn't he?
Yes.
Right, using his mental powers. So he also controls the automatons with his mind, which was a great idea, I thought.
Yes. Yes.
So let's see.
Wow. Look at
Next,
that. Oh
yeah.
wow, Misfit.
So so here we're seeing like, instead of blood and gore, we're seeing like, energy lines and clouds of smoke.
Right.
The Misfit is shooting a projected energy beam out of his head. The Misfit has clobbered them with a blast of mental energy. Um, and but of course, Misfit is weakened. So the cyborg men are going to be pressing their cyclo hearts, preparing to fission, and they turn into these metal warriors that look cool. They're shiny like the Silver Surfer, a lot of light blue and white highlights. They were born with hearts that function like cyclotrons, whatever that is, and can produce a biological version of atomic fission. Okay, not very well explained, but I love it.
Yes.
Because remember, in Turbo Pit Fighter, we are going to try to explain a little bit better, a little more realistically, how radioactivity converts in the future into usable energy forms, and also we're going to talk about the effect it has on people, whether they survive or whether they,
Mutate.
mutate. Right, exactly.
Right. Right.
So now these three guys are charging, and they're going to tussle with the bats. They're overcoming the bats here. The bats are tough and vicious. What's more, they don't panic. No ordinary human could long survive such fury, but Ben's steel-like skin withstands a clawing that would easily result in horrible poisoning. And we see the sound effect "skreek." We can imagine the nails on his face.
That's
The tenacious bats try to bring down the opponents they cannot destroy. Meanwhile, their numbers increase. They pour in by the thousands
good.
through a wrench in the
Lord.
globe's hull.
Good
Wow.
Lord.
So the globe is compromised. And, you know, um, Kirby, you gotta love it. The fact that he's using the description. I can only see four bats in this, sixth of a page panel, but
Right.
thousands in the
Yeah.
description. So you love that. I mean, that is done on purpose, folks. That is like genius. Um, Meantime, and I also love these little pink boxes, right? They're colorful. There's not too much white on the page, but just the normal word balloons. Kamandi desperately searches for an opportunity to unburden himself from the misfit. That room behind the steel door, you can leave me in there. Good deal, misfit. I'm needed where the fighting's going on.
Yeah.
And now we have chapter 2.
Killer
And
Germ. That's right.
right, so
That's
this
right.
this is this Mordecacus thing, right?
Yes,
So
you remembered.
remember? So
Uh,
yeah, so 5 pages of story, and then we're into chapter 2. Um, we explained that this is so he can just kind of reset, use a third of a page up with a giant title graphics, and then a little paragraph up top. Nobody reads, but this is his vehicle in order to make so many pages into splash pages, right? And this isn't too different from the last panel, this last little box where Commander was just running down the hall, but he just posterizes it. We see a nice view of the corridor in diminishing perspective. A lot of nice black and white interplay with some machinery up on the ceiling, and Commander's saying that this place reminds him of a creepy tomb, and the Misfit is saying, "Well put, Commandy. In the end, it shall be their tomb and Earth's tomb." And we're passing by all these warning signs, right? I love that too. Warning, warning, danger. So Kamandi is going to stash the Misfits behind this big metal kind of like bank vault. And he shuts the steel door without glancing at the old sign upon its surface saying, "Danger, do not enter." We get inside and we see that the Misfit is staring moodily at a strange object before him. And he says, "Haha, I'll not only be safe in here, but in command. Before me is the sealed container of Morococcus, the deadliest germ ever bred on Earth. Once unleashed, it can kill every living thing on this world, as we learned last issue. I'm weak from my wounds, but my brain is unharmed and has the power to turn the lock of the container."
uh-oh.
So his mental waves mightily press on the great lock, and then open as it spins open, and out comes this thing. Oh my god! Hidden tumblers slide and snap, and then at the misfit's mental prodding, the lid of the
What a
container rocks.
great character though, the Misfit on so many
Yeah,
different levels. He's he's so
it's a great character. It should have been
well,
a
he's not
recurring character.
completely evil, yet he's not, he's not trying to do good. He's warning everybody. And though here he is letting out the most deadliest germ ever. And I don't know if he's thinking like, this is a great weapon to save the day. I don't, he's just a really like, I guess some people would say he's an all over the place character, but I really like this in a character where they're not defined as good or evil or just or bad. It's just making decisions based on,
Right. Well, it's chaotic,
yeah,
and the Misfit was behind all of the mayhem that happened in the last issue. So this is an issue where it's tightly connected to the previous issue,
right.
where they get to the tracking site, and then things start to go wrong when a robot starts attacking them, and he was under the control of the Misfit, who was trying to control things. And, of course, when things start breaking, he's like, "Fool, you've unleashed the deadly Mordecacus." Now he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, it's
And so, we're seeing a picture of this germ. I think, Kirby is kind of like foretelling the coronavirus in some ways. But in this new world, he can live only if he destroys all other life around him. And kingdoms and empires would crumble to dust at his deadly touch. Mordecacus waits in his prison. He waits to get out and breed. Sounds about right.
okay.
Meanwhile, Commandy's just concerned about going back and helping fight the bats, and
Yeah.
Welcome back, Kamandi. We can use all the help we can get. They're trying to contain the bats and stuffing them behind the wall. They seem endless in number. We may hold them at bay if we close off this section. And Kamandi's shooting away.
Well, there's 1,000
Um,
of them in there, so
right, there's thousands of them, remember?
this is number 732, 733.
So there's a brief respite here, fishing back to normal so they can make their decision. They revert to bone and muscle, and then they're having a little conference. How do you assess our situation, Ben? It's close to hopeless. those those bats are running wild
Wow.
in all different parts of the tracking site. And here Renzi says, I vote for abandoning the tracking site. It was a false haven for our ancestors. They clung to it and died. Let's do what we must for the living. Where did you hide the misfit, Kamandi? Back there behind a large steel door. Great Scott! The misfit's in the same room with the killer Germ.
Leave them.
With his Yeah, with his mental powers, the misfit may.
Jump
Oh,
ship.
don't even think. Right now, in this panel, I'm looking.
There.
Can you just center the right? Yeah, center the right page a little bit. I need to see because in my, yeah, they cleaned up his face, but in my copy, Ben's face has all of this black schmutz on it that looked like it was like a printing problem.
Okay.
And it's probably just on my copy, but they're going to have to get back behind that steel door real quick. Now they say the bats are a minor problem. We've got to stop the great disaster. Every second counts. And they're like, open this door. Do you hear us, misfit? He's using his mental powers to keep it closed. They're trying to turn the big dial on it, and they're trying to open it. And astute readers might notice that the warning message that was printed on the door is no longer there. Let us in, misfit. We won't harm you. We want to help you. He says, "Do take me for a fool. I'm in command now." He's not cooperating.
I love this.
And he says, with his mental powers, he could release that germ in there. I know, Renzi. We've got to keep his mind focused on other things. They're going to try to outsmart him. He goes, "That's your job, Kamandi. The misfit trusts you. He may. I saved his life when the bats first attacked. Remember when Kamandi had him in a little backpack?
Yep.
The harness. So stay here, talk to him. We've got an important job to do." They don't explain what it is, but they're already running out. And let me see. I'm seeing this great ad for Golden Funnies. They're back. Buck Rogers, Superman, Terry and the Pirates, Mandrake the Magician. Actually, that was one of the earliest comics. So story page 11, we see that Kamandi is still talking to the misfits. We see the warning sign is back. Danger, do not enter. He goes, "Why don't you send out a brainwave and find out, misfit?" Misfit says, "You may speak more humbly soon. The bats are all around you now. Do you hear them?" I hear them." To Kamandi's surprise, the steel door slowly opens. "Come in here, you young fool. You won't last a minute when the bats break into the section." "Why should it matter to you, misfit? Death from the bats is as final as death from your killer germ. The difference is certainty. You know the bats will kill you when they get here. But if I don't know but I don't know if you'll release that germ. Is that it?" "That's right, Commander. You've got to buy as much time as you can. You can gain more of it in here. You little fiend. You enjoy playing cat and mouse with people's lives. Suppose I blast that germ right now. You wouldn't dare shoot Mordecacus. The moment you shatter the vial, you'll be dead." And that was, oh yeah, that was was that a right hand facing page for you, just Ben?
Yes.
Story page 11?
Yes.
Okay, good. Um, "You could be bluffing, Misfit. For all I know, that thing couldn't give me more than a mild cold." He goes, "Ha ha, prove it, boy. Shoot at Mordecacus. He can't harm me. I'm immune to him. So are Ben Boxer and his friends. We're all like no other life produced on Earth. Well, you're not immune to bullets. I've got nothing to lose by blasting you. You're
Ooh, he's calling
bluffing."
them bullets, Jake.
Yeah,
He just called them bullets.
"You're not immune to bullets. I've got nothing to lose." Right. Sigo, he says, "You're bluffing, Commander. You couldn't shoot one as defenseless as myself. My limbs are too small and weak to use against you. No, You won't shoot. He goes, you're a liar. Your brain, I'll get your brain. Suddenly, at that instant, they're here, Kamandi. The bats are here. But you're still alive, boy, right? So they're starting to like dent the walls. Squeak, squeak, bam, bam, bam. It gets louder from this panel to the next. I like how he's using this kind of like split screen
Yeah,
where
the
you can see
wall.
what,
It's
yeah,
great.
you can
It's
see
great.
what's on both sides of the panel.
Yeah.
So he's doing that a couple of times here. Ungrateful whelp, I bought you this time to live. Thanks for nothing. That door won't hold them for long. And don't panic, boy. My mental powers will hold that door. Death will come at my command. You know it, and I know it, but do the bats know it? So this is some interesting last couple of pages, right? They're really just kind of like going back and forth here about, is the misfit good or bad?
Yeah.
Like we were discussing before. What's he gonna do? What's his plan? Where's he going with this? And we're just kind of like vacillating, right? We're just like held in this like suspense here, vacillating. We know the bats are closing in, and we got to see where this is going. So I can't wait to find out. He goes, they'll know it when I command it. The bats shall die. You shall die. Every living thing on earth shall die. Only life produced on tracking sites shall survive. It was planned that way. I can't believe that the planets were human and all that survives them is a monstrous germ, a mental freak, and 3 lonely inhumans.
Mm.
So now we go to the classic
Whoa.
video that was made.
Wow.
Suddenly, the lights grow dim, and
Holy
the screen above
moly.
the misfits springs to life. An image of the past flashes into motion. Kamandi looks on in the last moments of the planners when the horrible truth of their failure dawns on them, dies with them, leaving behind the bitterest of challenges to living creatures. Them or us. Chapter 3. You're running an old videotape. I should have known that such records would be kept in the tracking site. I've turned on the tape machine with a mental wave. You're watching the last of our planners. Now listen. Dr. Hiram Boxer recording. My staff and I have succeeded in containing the ultimate germ, Mortococcus. You can see like bodies literally lying around in the background with microscopes and tape deck.
It's
Oh my
awesome.
god.
And this is Ben's dad.
Right,
This is
apparently,
Ben's
or
dad. Ben Boxer's
definitely
pop.
his namesake.
Yeah.
Um, in the next page, we're seeing these very special panel borders,
And then the
right?
little
With
film, like it's a film playing. Freaking
right,
genius.
the videotapes are playing. I
Genius.
get well, he's genius, but he didn't foresee digital. As the tape will show, it is plainly evident we did not escape infection. The battle has taken its toll. I am the last human still alive on tracking site. Father, father, don't die, Mr. Boxer. Our long-range program to protect our descendants from all natural dangers will never be finished. Here we can see young Ben Boxer. Don't
All
leave
of
us.
them are young.
Yeah,
There's Renzi and then the nondescript Yeoman Johnson, over here. But it's like they to euthanize, not euthanize, to make them younger. He just kind of just makes a bigger forehead. You notice
yeah,
that?
I know.
You
Yeah,
notice
and
that?
it
That's kind of
works.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna put that in there. Go for it.
Well, it's true. When babies are
Yeah,
1 year old, their head is 25% of the total height.
yeah, yeah.
So you'll be alive, Ben. You, Renzi, and Steve, you 3 were the best of our efforts. But physically, you 3 are not human. It's the price you must pay for our experiments in survival. Our
Mm.
work on a mental approach to survival produced something much less fortunate. Open that life support cubicle, Steve. Let's have a visual record. I know, sir. You want a shot of the misfit.
Dun,
Let me
dun,
out!
dun.
Let me out! The baby misfit.
That's
We
awesome. Speaking of big
we can't.
heads,
Yeah,
that's
I know.
60% of the body height.
That's right. Let
Big
him out.
move.
We can't let him out. He's too weak to survive, right, sir?
Mm,
Um,
preemie.
but Commandy is never to see the finish of the videotape. What, Ben? So he's pulled through a trap door. Follow me. It happens so suddenly that Kamandi almost falls down the opening into which he's been yanked, a hidden shaftway. Don't be surprised. I know every crevice in tracking site. I was watching the last videotape made by your father, Ben. I learned a lot, but not enough. You've seen enough. It was a bid for survival that went wrong. We're going to end it now by doing something right. Hurry, Kamandi. Okay, okay. In all these years, while the misfit went mad in prison and Mordecacus brooded in his vial, we planned to get rid of our own jail, tracking site. The engine! You've made the engine work. The magnetic repulsion engine erupts into action. We've done it, men. Years of studying this thing have paid off. Now to the hover jet. Let's go. So they're starting up this engine-looking thing. Remember we looked at it last time with the
Yep.
habit trail?
Yep.
A moment later, get in, Kamandi. No time for questions. Go, go. Now this is a cool little hover jet.
Fantastic
That
Four.
yeah reminds us of the Quinjet, and why were they flying around in a balloon before? You've heard the men, Steve. Put her in high and get us out of here. She's geared to maximum. Pray that we make it in time. Take off. Faster, we've got only seconds to reach the outside. Even as the hoverjet races to clear tracking site, a huge tremor rocks the giant globe. Woo! This is it. Go, go, go.
Oh
Wow.
my Lord.
Originally designed in the image of Earth, tracking site rises like a small planet, picking up speed as it gains new heights. So it's being launched. Oh, wow. So the whole thing is a rocket.
Ooh.
Thousands of tenacious bats clinging to the gash in the Great Hull become unwitting passengers on this fantastic flight. We see it's
Now
leaving
that's a
the
lot more
surface.
than four bats right there. And that's the
Yeah, there you
hole,
go.
and that's the hole that they're trying to get through to get everybody get in there. Oh wow.
Higher, higher,
Boom.
faster. Tracking sight grows small and swift as it fades into the upper strata. But inside the globe, the angry voice of the misfit sounds. I've been cheated, cheated of my revenge. Then a powerful mental force smashes the vial which contains Mordecacus. Come out, you're free now. Crash.
Mm.
Well, it looks like more like a snake than a germ, but Mordecacus is fully evolved during his years of isolation. He grows even larger. Haha, we're both free now, but hold your anger. I'm immune to your touch. The germ knows nothing of such immunity. Wherever there is life, he must snuff it out to live. He moves towards Misfit. No, no, I'm immune. It passes swiftly and leaves behind it what is left of the Misfit. Then
Oh.
Mordecacus moves towards the steel door. It senses more life beyond it. Instinct draws the germ to further action. So strong is the germ's touch of death that the door corrodes into small, rotting grains of metal.
Whoa.
The The waiting bats only have a fraction of a second to scream.
Scream.
Squeak! And
Oh. Damn.
soon after, Mordecacus is nowhere to be
Oh
seen. But in
boy.
his wake is a horrible shambles of decaying bodies and metal.
Oh
There's
boy.
no stopping the germ. The interior of tracking site is soon devoid of all life except Mordecacus. He is hungry and ever larger. In space, he will shrivel and die, and below the earth is still in sight, but all the bounty it offers is forever lost to Mordecacus. Perhaps the planners didn't fail after all. They did teach Ben Boxer the meaning of survival. It was them or us, Kamandi. I'm glad we won. Earth is the winner, Ben. That's true, Kamandi. Despite all its dangers, Earth is still my real home, even if I'm not totally human. It's a big world, Ben, with enough room for everybody. There may be others who don't think so, Kamandi, others who may challenge our right to live. Then they give us no choice. It's them or us. So, wow. So Kirby got us out of that. He held us in
Wow.
suspense and tension for most of the issue. We didn't know where everything was going. The Misfit thought he was immune, but he wasn't because Mordecacus had been evolving all those decades. Uh, and uh, and Kirby wraps this one up with a nice, neat bow. Except he's going to tease and say, next month in Kamandi's world, you'll be shocked at what could be bought in a department store. Read The Devil.
Wow.
So that's a teaser. You have to wonder, did Kirby go into a department store and have a bad experience?
Yeah, but he's got the lions or tigers there. Yeah, they tigers? I think they're tigers, but they're pirates.
Well, we
So,
will have to see, and
oh man, we gotta wait a whole week.
that's right. I mean, if you
Back
want,
then,
we
you had to
can.
wait a whole month.
Yeah, so you may be right. We might see the tigers or the bears or the bats, but we might see something completely new. We're going to see where Kirby is going. He just kind of like rejuvenated the series, and he did a two-issue story arc, which was so cool. I remember this from my boyhood. I remember every minute of it. All of that stuff. And yeah, it remains to be seen where we're going to go next, but. Um, just to get back to the history of Jack Kirby for a moment.
Hmm.
I got to the point in the Stuff Said book where it brings us from the late 50s into the early 60s. And what you might want to know, or what the audience might want to know, that's really interesting, is that there's actually a fight over Spider-Man where Jack Kirby claims that he and another creator came up with the name before Stan Lee, and that he had drawn, an unhyphenated, he had drawn a character who kind of looks like Captain America. He's got a like a web gun, and Ditko attested to the fact that Kirby had submitted a sketch. Um, in the earlier 50s, 1957, um, Kirby came up with something called I'm sorry, 1953. Um, Kirby had like a publishing company called Mainline, and they sublet space from Harvey Comics,
Yeah.
and he was working with a writer named Jack Oleck,
Yep.
Oleck. They came up with sketches sketches exist in this book for a character called the Silver Spider who crawls up walls. And that kind of stuff was just laying around, and it was like kicking around. When we get to the late 50s, what was happening was Marvel was foundering, there was floundering, and um, Kirby in 19, Kirby was like, just taking odd jobs. They were doing monster stories for Marvel, but in 1960, Jack learned that his wife Roz is pregnant with her fourth child, Lisa, and so he had to take any work he could get, and he started doing art for Classics Illustrated educational comics.
Hmm.
But they say he was very, very unhappy there. He was complaining because there were so many revisions necessary because they had to be historically accurate.
Ooh.
So this is really the only thing that they talk about Kirby doing in 1960, which sounds to me like he was doing a lot of development work on his own because in spring of 1961, um, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby got together, even though they had this love-hate relationship. They got together and they were trying to pitch to Martin Goodman of Marvel, the head publisher. It was actually called Magazine Management Company. Remember, they had those like ever-changing names, right? The name Marvel doesn't even appear on Fantastic Four #1. Um, but they were pitching superhero comics because DC was seeing success in 1960 and 61 with the Justice League,
Yep.
which was like Flash, Wonder Woman, Green
Which is
Lantern, and the
Gardner Fox, which is Gardner Fox, by the way.
really,
Yeah, he
yeah.
wrote.
So
Yeah,
that
he's that's his biggest claim to fame.
right. So they and Justice League was doing so well that they migrated from the Brave and the Bold to a comic with their own name on it.
Yep.
And DC was bigger than Marvel back then. They had Superman and Batman, and they were kicking Marvel's ass at this point. So Kirby said, that Marvel was really hurting, and they had a distribution deal that said they can only put out 8 titles a month. That's all that they were getting space for from their newsstand distributor. And so what they did was they said, instead of putting out 8 monthly titles, we're going to put out 16 bi-monthly titles, right? Which is cool. But they were doing a lot of monster stories and a lot of like westerns, right? They had Kid Colt Outlaw and Rawhide Kid and stuff. So it wasn't really the time of the Marvel superheroes yet. And in 1959, Simon and Kirby were working for Archie Comics on a title called The Fly,
Yeah.
and the Fly, was kind of like an insect thing. Um, Jack Kirby was also wrapping up a run on a comic strip called Sky Masters of the Space Force with Wally
Wally
Wood.
Wood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know this.
Oh
So
yeah.
they had a run, from like about a 3-year run. What happened was Kirby got sued because one of his co-creators, Schiff, a guy by the name of Schiff, um, successfully sued Kirby, and he got the bad news in 1959 or 60. So Kirby is really hurting,
Mm.
and he's got this new kid, and it was just everything was falling into place for Kirby to relaunch these superhero ideas with Stan Lee, and that's what happens in 1961. The Fantastic Four was made to counter the new superhero line from DC, but Stan Lee's brought to the table the idea that the characters were going to be troubled, and they were going to, really wear on their sleeve all of their problems and arguments and everything. And, that, of course, is what, uh, you know, made Marvel different and special. The characters seemed a lot more human and relatable, right?
Yeah.
The stories were a lot more interesting. There was all this, tension going on between even characters that got along, right? I mean, even characters that were on the same team, right? They would fight, and so that was kind of new. And Kirby was the guy to do the art. So I mean, we've all seen how classic Fantastic Four #1 is. How they break it up into panels, and they take that and they make a whole book out of panel by panel. Remember?
So
Um,
Jake, um,
yeah,
we have to. You've got to start laying out how we can do a breakout video of this book. Because it seems to have so many different intersections in what we end up talking about in Turbo, but more
yeah,
importantly, but more importantly, the thing that keeps coming up for me is to make a comic book, it's just not a straight line. It's
no, it's
it's just
not.
not sitting down as one individual and oh, after work or on the weekend you do. I mean, I'm not criticizing that as not a comic. I'm just saying we definitely come from an era where maybe it was sort of the end of an era where it was such a larger thing than just the individual. I mean, to hear, and I would love to hear more about, Jack Kirby being sued and Kirby trying to get rights to Spider-Man. I mean, it's just because there was so many spinning wheels just to get a book out monthly, just so Martin Goodman could get a swimming pool,
Right. No, yeah,
right?
Martin Goodman was a publisher of very low character. He was already cited by the Federal Trade Commission many times for repackaging the same thing and trying
Right.
to pass it off as new
New
material,
material, yeah.
and not paying artists, not paying writers,
Right,
selling all this great promises on the cover of a comic only to disappoint the reader when they get
right,
this thing
right.
home. But Jack Kirby was different, and Stan were different. I mean, so we're just getting into this part of the book now, where they're just about to springboard
How
all
far
these
are
great
you in? How far are you in on the book?
I just got into spring of 1961,
Is that like halfway
and
through the book?
oh no, this is only the
Okay.
this is only the first
So
like 10 pages.
you've got some time to get through. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
okay, and then we could do breakout.
it's kind of a slow roll because
No
we're
worries.
going, this is going to bring us, I think the book goes through the 60s, 70s, 80s all the way to the end.
Right.
But the thing that I wanted to, the thing that brought this to mind was, we're making one comic, but you know, the idea when Kirby and Lee were coming out with Fantastic Four, and they put a lot into Fantastic Four, but the way that Jack retold it, like in like later in his life, was that it was his intention to come out with a whole bunch of titles at once
Hmm.
and just flood the zone,
Hmm.
and he called it the Blitzkrieg.
Mm.
And he felt that if they put out a bunch of new superhero books all at once, it would make a splash. And he had in his mind Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, the X-Men, Thor, and Hulk. According to Kirby, his retelling, his version is that he had all those, titles in mind, and he wanted to put them out. And then we see they did put them out in fast succession, right? Except for Spider-Man, Kirby was on all of those.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
it's just
his
amazing
meal
to me.
ticket to pay, to keep him, to feed his family, his growing family. If he's got this fourth kid on the way, I'm sure he's still living in New York too.
Right.
Like it's just,
He was at the top of his game. He was so fast that he could, do the art on a comic faster than Stan Lee could do the script on it. That's
right.
why they had to evolve, their
Hmm.
process.
Hmm.
But the other thing was if you come out with a if you come out with a concept and you just put out an issue, nobody says it's got to be monthly. You can make it bi-monthly and just rotate back around to it. Number one. Number two, the other really important thing was to get the idea in print so that nobody else could take it, and
Yeah.
to and
Yeah.
you know, and to show that you have all these great ideas, and that if people start buying your stuff, then they can see more and more and more of it. And that's what happened with Marvel. That's how they grew. They got this base of popularity, and then they were able to invest in more artists and more writers and more office space, and more printing, more distribution. So it's a genius idea, and that's why. And I knew why I was compelled, you know, in my life to just keep coming out with other ideas and keep them moving forward. Even though I couldn't explain it. I just, every time I saw, because this is like the third book I'm reading on Marvel now in the history, and even Martin Goodman, he's just cranking out the pulps or cranking out the westerns or the sci-fi or the bondage stuff. He's just cranking out is the main thing. And can you crank out ideas without cranking out a full length story? Yeah, you can do a cover with some text. Just make it a text story. Or you can, hire out, or you can collab, or you can do, whatever you can do it. But, the mission, has got to be just like, having all these great ideas and putting them out. And then we see with Kirby, it's a process, where you just like develop them as you go, right?
Yeah.
Just put out one issue at a time, and then the stories develop, the characters develop. This person has a brother, that person has an evil twin, whatever. Um, but that's why I always have a sketchbook, and I'm always sketching. I have this other idea and this other idea, and I have all these different stories. So my dream is to, be able to put them all out before I die, but you know um collaborate with others, or maybe even just do some of it in prose, and just have some, a couple of illustrations here or there, whatever you got to do. Just like, don't die with these ideas that just haven't been put out there, because when you're gone, somebody else can pick it up and let them fight over the rights or whatever. But just have good ideas, let ideas get out there. And if you have a cool name for a character or a team, or even if it's just a concept, some people go to a planet and it's a mining planet, and then this happens, that happens. Put it out and see. That's my slogan. Put it out and see.
Awesome. All right. Well, then let's close down on this here, Kamandi number 10 issue.
Yep,
Dive through in historical fact finding.
yep.
And I cannot wait till the next one. So, and as we've mentioned before, if this is where you're coming in, you've made it this far, thank you so much. Jake and I are working on our own comic book. Every week we meet for an hour on Sunday. We record that episode. We upload an episode, and it's us talking about making a comic book our way. But that's all I got, Jake. You got anything in closing?
No, that's it. Just keep
Awesome.
reminding people to click over to Turbo Pit Fighter, the making of, and I don't know when you're listening to this, but always enjoy comics, and all hail Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and all these other great guys.
Hallelujah. All right. I'll see
All
you
right,
next week, Jake.
all right, Kirby, good.